As we stand here today, the Nationals are not expected to sell just yet, but Ted Leonsis has now put his name back into the mix as he was with the Sports Junkies this morning. So, should Ted Leonsis buy the Nationals, and should we want Ted Leonsis to buy the Nationals? I'll answer that after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clare. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClaire11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter as well as YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, again, search Locked On Nationals and hit that subscriber button. Drop a thumbs up. Maybe even drop a thumbs down if you're not a fan of the Nationals or even this podcast. It's no big deal either way. Just do something. How about that? Later on in today's show, we'll be talking about the Nationals doubleheader as it was rained out last night against the White Sox. And of course, Eric Fedde is starting in Game 2. We'll talk about him and kind of his success over the last year and a half since leaving the Nationals organization. It's been pretty interesting, to say the least. He has had a wildly successful career over the last year and a half. He's been very good so far this season, got a sub-4 ERA, and has been one of the brighter spots on a terrible Chicago White Sox team. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on in today's show. And also, should the Nats go all in for 2024? Because as we sit here today, again, the Nationals are only one game below 500. They've been pretty damn good, but still, should they go all in? Because there is a possibility in which the Nationals do go all in. Maybe they win some games here. And again, this stretch in May is a big, crucial part of the 2024 season. So should they go all in? We'll answer that in the second segment of today's show. But this morning, I was listening to Sports Junkies over on 106.7 The Fan. Ted Leonsis joined the show right around 9 a.m. and he was asked if he is still interested in buying the Washington Nationals. And just to sum it all up, he basically said yes. So should the Nationals, and really should Ted Leonsis, want to buy the Washington Nationals? There's a lot of different angles that we're going to attack in this first segment, but we've got some pros and cons of Ted Leonsis potentially buying the Washington Nationals. I'll get to that after we tell you guys about today's sponsor. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So Ted Leonsis, it sounds like he will be making another run at the Washington Nationals. And just kind of catch people up to speed if you aren't aware, Ted Leonsis has already made an offer to buy the Nationals roughly about a year or so ago. That is when it got kind of public, and that's when everyone knew. But even then, he has made it pretty well known that he has always been interested in buying the Nationals. And of course, the recent empire that he's got, he owns he owns the Capitals, he owns the Wizards, and he now also owns the Monumental Sports Network, which airs the Capitals games and as well as Wizards games. And yeah, this is probably a ploy to try to get the Nationals over on Monumental Sports Network, but we all know one of the bigger issues right now is the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. It's nothing to do with any of their employees, but the way that the system is set up for the Nationals, it is set up for them to get less money than what they are deserved. So, and that is because of the Angelos family. When they used to own the Orioles, they fought tooth and nail until the Nationals were actually finally sent to DC. They got the better deal in that massive deal, even though DC is a top 10 market in all sports. Baltimore is one of the bottom markets in all of sports right now. And so the money is a little bit messed up, to say the least. But now with this Nationals team, do you want Ted Leonsis to buy the Nats? It's really kind of a tricky question, in my opinion, because I'm actually very torn on Ted Leonsis as an owner itself. I think Ted Leonsis, on the front of it, not a terrible owner, but also when you kind of dig deeper into things that he has done and the tendencies that he has kind of followed as he owns the Wizards and the Capitals, they're really not all that great. So I came up with some pros and some cons of Ted Leonsis potentially going after the Nationals. Pro, Masson could likely be solved. And that would be a huge issue resolved for this regime, for the Lerner family, and hell, even if Ted Leonsis doesn't buy the Nationals, if the Nationals were to go over to the Monumental Sports Network, it would be a huge win for everybody involved. And of course, it would not just be for the money aspect of it, even though money plays a huge role in this. And obviously money is the reason why Masson has been so terrible for the Nationals. But if Ted Leonsis were to buy the Nationals, you would probably assume that it would be a pretty seamless transition from the Nationals going from Masson over to Monumental Sports Network. And also keep this in mind. When Ted Leonsis made the offer for the Nationals just a year or so ago, whenever it was at this point, David Rubenstein was also in that deal, reportedly, from the Washington Post. He even made a run to buy the Nationals himself, I believe, but he obviously didn't. The Lerner family never sold because they thought that they can get a little bit more money than what was offered at that point in time. So there is obviously an already working relationship between Leonsis and David Rubenstein, who now takes control of the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. He is now the majority owner of that. That right then and there already kind of gives you a bunch of green flags of what could happen. If there is a working relationship between David Rubenstein and as well as Ted Leonsis and even the Lerner family, that is a huge already stepping stone that we never had with the Angelos family and as well as the Lerners. This is something that has just simply never happened. They've never gotten along, and hell, they haven't even made a trade between each other. That is how bitter that this kind of rivalry, you could say, is. And it's not even a rivalry because I don't think Orioles fans hate Nationals fans. I don't think Nats fans hate Orioles fans. But still, between the organizations itself and the owners at the top, there was a lot of animosity for years and years and years that I think now is broken. So having that relationship already, just considering that Ted Leonsis and David Rubenstein once actually went in together to try to buy the Washington Nationals, that tells you right then and there they're friendly enough to be able to offer up and try to buy the Nationals at one point. So right then and there, that is a pro. I think Masson could be resolved if you do have Ted Leonsis, and also considering he already owns Monumental Sports Network, there's an easy fix in over there as well. Another con of this possibility. Ted Leonsis has been known to keep his stars around. If you look around the Capitals and the Wizards, over the years, both teams, I'm a huge DC sports fan. I'm a Capitals fan. I'm also a Wizards fan. Both teams aren't really necessarily great, but still the Capitals, they've had a very good run. They've been the best sports team around for the last 15 plus years at this point. He has been known to keep his superstars around. When you talk about John Wall and the extension that he got back in the mid-2010s, Bradley Beal, the extension that he got, Alex Ovechkin, Nicholas Backstrom of the Capitals, and Tom Wilson, of course, as of recent within the last few months here. The Nationals, and not the Nationals, the Capitals and the Wizards, they have kept their superstars around. Now, what team in town has not kept their superstars around? The Nationals. Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg stayed in town, but yikes, am I right? Juan Soto. All the different, I don't have to name them, you guys know. That is something that this ownership group, unfortunately, has not been able to do up to this point in time. Maybe they changed things around with C.J. Abrams. Maybe they changed things around with Dylan Cruz and James Wood and Brady House when they all eventually come up. But still, that has been one of the knocks on the Lerner family so far. They cannot keep the stars around. Now, does that mean if Ted Leonsis buys the Nationals, he'll just open up a checkbook and say, here you go, C.J. Abrams, what do you want? Blank check, you're a National for life. James Wood, what do you want? You're a National for life. I don't think that'll be the case, but he does have a track record of keeping his stars around and having to be a pretty loyal owner. Now, that also comes with cons when you're a little bit too loyal. Because again, I'm a DC sports fan. I have followed the Capitals and the Wizards my entire life. I know what it's like to root for a team owned by Ted Leonsis. It's not all sunshine and rainbows because there are some cons. Con number one sort of has to tie in with his pro as well. He is loyal to a fault. If you are a Wizards fan out there, this name may mean nothing to you. Former general manager Ernie Grunfeld was in reign for about 20 years of the organization. 20 years. My entire teenage life, kid life, my entire life, Ernie Grunfeld was the GM of this operation in town. Now, let me ask you this. Were the Wizards ever good at anything back in the day? No. Way too loyal. Way too loyal, in fact, you could say. The Wizards never did anything. They never really got out there and made any splashy moves. They got lucked into John Wall one year. But even then, Ernie Grunfeld he was never a good executive in basketball, in my opinion. He was just kept around because Leonsis was pretty damn loyal. And sometimes you are too loyal to a fault. And especially in a cutthroat industry like sports, obviously it's nice to keep relationships around. It's nice to build relationships as well. But you can't just be out there having guys like Ernie Grunfeld run your team forever. And again, I know this is a Locked On Nationals podcast, but if you listen to Locked On Wizards, you ask them about what they think about Ernie Grunfeld, they'll tell you all about it. It was not good. It was not good for a long, long time. And of course, it doesn't even just stop right there. Bradley Beal, a player who is a star, but was never a superstar. Yes, he averaged 30 points a game and for a couple seasons, but still, Bradley Beal was one of the only players in NBA history to get a full no-trade clause. Got the second biggest contract in NBA history from Ted Leonsis. I'm not going to act like I'm some basketball expert here, but I can tell you this. Bradley Beal is not deserving of having the second biggest contract in NBA history. Him and Bradley Beal are very tight. Bradley Beal is a great community guy, someone that you want representing this team, but still, as far as a business decision goes, that is an awful, awful thing to do. Kind of an example to make here is, let's say the Nationals looked at Trey Turner and they basically just paid him what Shohei Ohtani got. Let's say Trey Turner was still a National and they just paid him the second biggest contract ever, gave him $600 million. That would have been ludicrous. Trey Turner is a great player, but he is not worth that kind of money. And even then, Bradley Beal is not on the scale of Trey Turner, in my opinion, when it comes to if you're comparing sports and how good they are. I think Trey Turner is better at baseball than what Beal is at basketball. But still, that's kind of the comparison that I came up with. You are not going to pay Trey Turner the highest contract in Major League Baseball history. He's not that good. He's very good, just like Bradley Beal is, but still, it's just not good. And the final last con, which in my opinion is the biggest one, do DC sports fan really want someone to own 3 teams in town? It just doesn't really sound good to me. I want different flavor in life. I want something that maybe won't be the same. Because the Capitals and the Wizards, I think a lot of people will disagree with this, but let's be honest. The Caps, they kind of lucked their way into getting Alex Ovechkin back in 2004, whichever year it was. If you don't have Alex Ovechkin over the last 15 years, what is this organization? What is it? And again, I'm not the biggest hockey fan out there, but I can tell you this. I don't think it would be all that good. I don't think you win the 2018 Stanley Cup. I think it's just a lot of mediocrity and with a lot of failed and high expectations that you never really reach. Now, I'm not saying that the Capitals wouldn't do that and they wouldn't be good, but still, it played a role into it. So if Ted Leonsis were to make the run at the Nationals, number one, there are some good things that come from it, but there also is some bad. Now, ultimately, would they be better than the Lerner family? I don't think they would. And I think that is a different conversation for a different day. But it is interesting that Ted Leonsis doesn't seem to be out of the race for the Washington Nationals. So keep that in mind as we continue to chug in 2024. And maybe in the offseason, we'll probably revisit this. Maybe the Lerner family does decide to knock that door down again and maybe sell the Washington Nationals. But we'll see what they do. So should the Nationals, speaking of 2024, should the Nationals go all in for 2024? I've got some thoughts on that. But before we get into it, let me tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at PrizePicks. And guys, when we talk about PrizePicks, you need to know that Major League Baseball is here, but of course, spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. So don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePick entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. Get in on the playoff action, win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. And of course, if you're watching tonight, you've got a lot of different games in the NBA. Maybe, just maybe, you want to go in there and have quick withdrawals and easy game plays. I can tell you that PrizePicks is the app for that because there's an enormous selection of players and stat types, and that is what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. So, of course, maybe you look at Anthony Edwards, maybe we're going to go the over on points, whatever it is, you can do that with our friends at PrizePicks. So all you have to do is download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is code LOCKEDONMLB. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, you can check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals there. Hit that subscriber button for me, please. So As yesterday was rained out, obviously, I think this is a pretty big talk of town. The Nationals are only one game below 500. They're playing one of the worst teams in all of baseball today with the Chicago White Sox, and you have 3 games over these next 2 days. Should the Nats go all in for 2024? Because in the middle of May, the Nationals aren't that bad. And again, if you win these 3 games, you're now 2 games above 500. There is a pretty sexy storyline here for this Nationals team. They had the opportunity to go all in, but should they? Absolutely not. You might be sitting at home asking, why? Why shouldn't the Nationals go all in? This is a good ball club. If you were to go all in, you are now selling away your assets of the future. You are selling your DJ Hurts down in AAA. You are selling your Jackson Rutledge. You are selling, name that prospect down in the minors. Maybe it's an Elijah Green at this point. The Nationals should not go all in this year. And the reason why that is, you have to have tunnel vision towards 2025 and beyond. 2025 in this offseason, that is when this Nationals team will take off. That is when the Nationals will actually start to be competitors. That is when you'll start turning on MLB Network yet again, and the Nationals will be discussed about breaking out this season. The Nationals, they have been bad since 2019 for one reason and one reason only. It is to retool their farm system. If you were to go even just prematurely at this point and stunt the growth of your guys like Mitchell Parker, for instance, or name that prospect down in the minors, maybe you trade away Travis Sikora or Robert Hassel, whoever it is, that would be an ultimate, utter mistake by this organization at this point. You need those guys to stockpile your system in order to, when you are actually really good, when you are a World Series threat, number one, they're either helping you win a World Series, or number two, you trade them away and you get assets that can help you that second. At this point in time, the Nationals, they need more than just a few pieces in order to get into the postseason. I think the Nationals may luck box their way into it at this point, but ultimately, I still see the Nationals just hanging on to all their prospects, as they should, by the way, and continue to build. Because everyone always kind of talks about this, and including myself, what separates the Dodgers from the Nationals and why the Dodgers are still successful to this day is because they were able to develop prospects on their own, even while selling their pieces for contending teams all those years, getting starting pitching, trading for Tyler Glasnow, whatever it is. They have done that year after year after year, and that is why they still have one of the better farm systems in all of baseball at this point. But what the Nationals have not done, they have not been able to build up their farm system the way that the Padres have, the way that the Dodgers have, the way that the Braves have. And even then, the Braves, well, it's kind of running a little bit dry right now. And you kind of see that as some of their pitching has been lacking. They've had some holes in their lineup. And also, before you know it, that Braves team will be aging. And that'll be a sight to see, to say the least. But still, the Nationals, this is still a retool year, in my opinion. It's not a rebuild anymore. This is a retool year. You got to sell your expiring contracts. You're going to have to sell Jesse Winker. He's been a great phenomenon for this team. He's been a leader in the clubhouse. You got to sell him. Trevor Williams at this point. He's going to be an asset at the deadline the way that he's been pitching. And of course, he'll be pitching in today's game that we'll have that preview for you later on in today's show. Eddie Rosario, the National League Player of the Week in May, which nobody saw that coming, by the way, as he was one of the worst hitters literally in all of baseball the first month of April. But now he's been on fire lately. Eddie Rosario, another guy. Victor Robles, someone who probably will be DFA'd. I don't know what the Nationals will do with them, but still. And also guys like Kyle Finnegan, Hunter Harvey. If you heard of a name, Mason Miller, the closer for the Oakland A's, who's pumping 101 consistently, he could be traded any day now. Teams are calling about him. The Cubs are interested in him. I believe the Padres have made calls about him as well, and I could definitely see the Padres going all in for him. If you were to trade him right now, Kyle Finnegan will be one of the better closers on the market for any team to go after. The stock for him will go through the roof if he continues to pitch the way that he has been so far in 2024. And also, there's a track record of success now with Kyle Finnegan. And this is also someone who is tied up all the way through 2026. So, Kyle Finnegan could be a name to watch this deadline and get something in return. And same with Hunter Harvey at this point. Also tied up for another few seasons. But the Nationals, as of right now, you should not be just all gung-ho on 2024. It just simply does not make sense. And of course, it would be nice to see them go all in. If they were to go all in, if they were to get assets through the door, if they were to trade for another starting pitcher, yeah, the Nationals would be looking pretty sexy on paper. And also you have some acquisitions, not literally, but figuratively, with James Wood coming up. Maybe Dylan Cruz heats up. Maybe Robert Hassel gets the call up to the bigs as well. Lane Thomas turns things around. And maybe the Nationals start to fall in a pretty damn good category. But as of right now, you should not be a seller, or you should not be a buyer. You are going to be a seller. You have to stockpile your future. You have to get prospects through that door. And also, at this point, you should probably be a little bit more picky with the guys that you get. You're pretty close to contending here. Get guys that are ready to contend at this point in time. Get guys like Mitchell Parker, tier prospects, whatever it is. You can get guys through the door here and hopefully, just hopefully, maybe make a huge difference for this Nationals team down the road. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So next, let's preview games 1 and 2 of this White Sox series. That is a doubleheader that starts at 4:40 today. And of course, Eric Fedde takes the bump in game 2 of this series, and it's against Mitchell Parker. We'll discuss that after we tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at Policygenius. And guys, when we talk about Policygenius, I need you to know that Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace, and it saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. And of course, if you're out there, you need to have some sort of life insurance at some point. Maybe you have a family, a young family as well. These are all things that you're going to have to set yourself up for a nice future for your family and as well as yourself, because it is such a good deal. And Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you talk through it. So talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step, and that is with our friends over at Policygenius. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description and get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So, of course, yesterday's game was rained out. And also, if you look at the weather in Chicago today, it's looking pretty rainy, pretty crappy yet again. So game 1, you do have Trevor Williams versus Chris Flexen, another right-handed pitcher for this White Sox team. Trevor Williams has been the ace of the Nationals so far through the first month and a half of the season. One of the bigger surprises in all of baseball. I don't care which way you spin it. Trevor Williams and his success so far has been a national story, literally. He's been on MLB Network. He's been crediting Sean Doolittle for what he has done. So you have game 1 today, 4:40 Eastern. I'm not expecting huge things from Chris Flexen, but still, he is better than what his numbers indicate. This is going to be someone who will attack the zone. He'll pump in the strike zone, but still, Trevor Williams, enough said. What I really want to talk about today is Eric Fedde going up against Mitchell Parker in game 2. Now, again, I hope to God they get these games in, because I want to see Eric Fedde so bad out there. For those, let's kind of talk about this. Eric Fedde was a first-round pick by the Nationals, I believe back in 2015 at a UNLV. Eric Fedde was, a top 100 prospect at one point in time. A lot of different people, a lot of different sites like Baseball America, Major League Baseball, MLB.com, obviously. All these sites were pretty damn high on Eric Fedde, and he had some success down in the minors for this Nationals team. But as he got to the majors, everything just kind of unraveled. Eric Fedde wasn't as good as people thought he could be. And ultimately, he just wasn't that good. He went overseas. He won the MVP award over in Korea. And then this season, he has been unbelievable for the Chicago White Sox. Eric Fedde is kind of one of those things where, in my opinion, it's kind of backed up what I've thought and a lot of Nationals fans have thought over the years. I've never really thought the Nationals have had a finding talent issue, if you know what I'm saying. I think the Nationals have always been able to find talent. I think the Nationals struggle in the department of developing talent. Because you look at Elijah Green, for example. He has got all the talent in the world. A legit, very good prospect. Someone who should be a very good baseball player. But you see, he's kind of struggling. Another guy, Christian Vaquero. So far this season in Fredericksburg, he has struggled tremendously. There are a lot of different things that you can look at and say, things should be better than what they are. But still, this Nationals team, they have struggled in developing guys like that. Eric Fedde is not some super talent. He was never going to be some mega prospect, but still, Eric Fedde obviously had talent that was tapped into overseas last year. Now the Chicago White Sox are doing the same thing, which, by the way, the White Sox are an organization that they don't really develop guys all too well either. They've shipped guys out like Fernando Tatis in years past. You see how that went. It did not go well. So the White Sox getting this out of Eric Fedde, number one, is stunning. And number two, good for Eric Fedde. Because again, I think this kind of reiterates the point in which the Nationals, they don't have a finding talent issue. Mike Rizzo is good at finding talent. What he is, not really himself, but what the Nationals as a whole has not been great at is developing that talent. And I think now this offseason, you've got a lot of new guys in the door that are going to be running the player development side. Eddie Longos, who will be the man for that job, who's the director of scouting operations, will now lead the player development side of things. I think the Nationals could be seeing some good and much better improved prospects come through the door as, again, I feel as if that has always been our issue here. So now you have Eric Fedde on the bump against Mitchell Parker. Mitchell Parker, one of the better Nationals pitchers so far this season. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, enjoy the baseball games today. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one.